Welcome back to another episode of Super J Recap. I'm Kyle. I'm joined once again.
I'm your King Ginger from Heel Turn Radio and DDT.
So we are going over the matchup between Lionheart and Hanzo Nakajima from the 1995 Super J Cup, hosted by Wrestling Association R. I like the fact that Hanzo just comes out in a Shredder cosplay.
I was like, oh man, Shredder had a baby with a Power Ranger?
Yeah.
Where have you been all my life, Nakajima?
Yeah.
Again, that music was fire.
Yep. The music was great. I thought that I saw Chris Jericho mouth "Come On Baby" about 10 million times during his entrance.
He did. I got that written down. There's a lot of proto Jericho where he just says, he goes, let's go, but he doesn't have the baby at the end of it.
Yep.
Or he goes, yeah, and I'm like, where's baby? I need that.
Yep.
And then he lets a big one out later on in the match. I'm like, yeah.
But yeah, this is so, like, I think this is the earliest Chris Jericho match I've watched, because I think the ECW stuff is a little after this, and the WCW stuff is
Smoky Mountain stuff.
Ah, that's true. Okay.
He and Lance Storm together are great.
Yeah.
They really were highly, it might have been highly underrated. I'm really surprised that somewhere like WCW did not snatch them up early.
Yeah, it was weird that, because Jericho, like, even looking at this match, it's like, oh, he's been this good since 1995. Cool. Like, that's
Isn't
kind
it
of
weird
annoying.
too? Isn't it weird too to see him in this particular match and realize like how many transitional stages he's been in, but how he's always been so good at playing to his strengths in a match, and staying away from his weaknesses. And he seems to tailor make all of his matches to his opponent. I thought this was a really good example of it.
Yeah, there's, like, even though he was a lot less vocal during the match, except for, the big one instance. But yeah, like, there was like start off, of course Jericho does the, like, flex pin as soon as he possibly can, just to set the tone. Leg lock.
And heel Jericho is best Jericho.
Yes. Yeah, as we have seen him as he's carrying a television show for the last year. Heel Jericho is so much fun. Like leg lock by Nakajima, hip toss followed up by a senton, and by Nakajima, headstand in the corner, then a head scissors takedown. Really quick offense. Like I said, I hadn't seen much of Hanzo Nakajima before this, because he's mostly a freelancer, and I haven't watched a lot of Michinoku Pro, admittedly. So
it's one of those federations where I have a bunch on a hard drive.
Okay.
I just haven't taken the time to watch it. He's got a very, very snappy, quick style. And early in the match, when he's kind of in control, you're right, it looks great. I was very impressed. I will say, too, man, when he takes that first chest slap, it seems to throw him off for the rest of the match. And that is Jericho. I don't know if Jericho stiffs him, but it is definitely strong style strikes from Jericho.
Well, Jericho's always kind of had the reputation of being snug, to be nice about it. Yeah, he lights him up, which was a criticism. Yeah.
Even through the Power Ranger suit, it's still just echoed.
Yeah. But yeah, like Nakajima, he was kind of the guys that I didn't know as well in this tournament of this first round. Him and Masayoki Mochizuki, who ends up in Dragon Gate later on. He wrestled Shinjiro Otani in the first round in a 5-minute just beat the crap out of each other, and then Otani hits a like springboard drop kick to the knee and then a leg lock and then just submits him.
Oh,
It was great. It was like 4 minutes. It was amazing.
Tani's so good.
Yeah.
Like, he gets overlooked all the time. He was so good.
Yeah. But yeah, he was really impressive. Like, baseball slide drop kick and then a big suicide dive like later on in the match. That's nice looking Hurricane Rano by Hanzo. Like,
a lot of lucha bumps for space before hitting the ropes.
Yep.
Which I thought was interesting, especially since Jericho just didn't move on any of them.
Yes.
I mean, he was just like, "Yeah, I'm not playing around here." I thought that really set the tone of like Jericho being the bigger, stronger man, just imposing his will on Nakajima, but Nakajima just being that little train that could, just constantly coming at him full speed. I thought it told a really interesting story. The only thing I was a little hesitant on my praise with Nakajima was I feel like he got thrown off rhythm a little bit when Jericho was just laying stuff into him. There was a soul butt kick too, where he just crushes him, and I wondered if he actually was legitimately hurt or is he just an epic seller, because he clutched those ribs from the back soul butt kick the rest of the match and the rest of the time you see him on a camera.
Yeah.
He's just holding himself, so I couldn't tell if Jericho just really got a good shot in there. Also, man, Jericho cheering for Nakajima to get the crowd going.
Yeah.
So
it's
good.
So good. Well, and especially, I can't remember if it was, actually, I believe it was the match interview that Jericho basically kind of glosses over Nakajima of like, you're a good wrestler, but if I beat you, I'm gonna go and face Wild Pegasus, and I'm gonna beat Wild Pegasus.
Everyone tells me I'm an underdog, but tonight's my night.
Yeah.
I love that. Just kind of like he was so focused on getting to that match, which makes me think that match is going to be off the charts because they know each other well and they're both tremendous workers, and at this time they were high risk.
Yep.
So, I did think it was real interesting that Nakajima does that dive between the second and third rope.
Yep.
And Jericho just kind of like, I guess I'll kind of catch you. Yeah. But he was like a human bullet. He came at him flying so hard.
Yeah.
So that I was just like, oh man, that's a great. Like he showed so much passion. I was really impressed with Nakajima, and I thought Jericho was just the great foil in that match. Yeah. And there was so much. There's a thing sometimes I worry about with light heavyweights is, do they hit that Tiger Mask Dynamite level of intensity? And I think like it's a great example with Dos Caras and El Samurai we watched in a previous episode, that they just kind of never get into that pace. I will say, although this match wasn't as competitive maybe as I would have hoped, it had so much snap to it. Even Nakajima hitting that snap suplex, there was an intensity to everything that I thought, superseded the previous matchup where it was face versus face, and it was definitely stakes in the match. But here you actually felt like there was some heat between the two of them the entire time. Also, man, Jericho top rope standing drop kick, sick, just sick.
Yeah, I was like,
what is he doing?
I was like, oh, I forgot he can do that.
That was nuts. And then right up to the top rope, high cross body to the floor. I was like, am I watching an All Japan match at this point? That was so good. I think that Jericho just was so consistently good in this match. And I do think that the way he did things helped slow Nakajima down a little bit, who I almost felt was going too fast, and some of his transitions weren't as smooth as if he was maybe a step slower. He was a million miles an hour, which also I thought helped the intensity.
Yep.
Also, I'd never seen Jericho use a Fisherman's Buster before.
Yeah. So, like, previous episodes, I actually pointed out the fact that the Fisherman Buster very much feels like it was the cutter of its day of this tournament, because Liger spams it, Sasuke uses it at one point. Jericho uses it at one point. You know, everybody's Ultimo Dragon uses it at one point. Like, everybody is just hitting this Fisherman Buster, and it's like, why are you all hitting this Fisherman Buster? It's so weird.
Falcon Arrow syndrome.
Yeah. But like, and it's Liger's finisher though. That's the weird thing about it. Of like,
he's got so many finishers though.
That's
the
true.
Capo kick, the palm strike, brain buster. You know, he was his running Liger bomb.
Yep.
I always thought he was so interesting because he was straight up a video game character.
Yes.
It was like he had no signature moves. Everything was a finish.
Yeah, everything's like, nope, I'm going to beat him with that. I'm going to beat him with that. I'm going to beat him with that.
Or
Yeah, it's like his only like,
yeah,
like his only like signature move was like the surfboard. You know, he'd use
Yeah.
that as like a mid move, but then everything else, it's like, nope, that can beat him. That can beat somebody. That can beat somebody.
Didn't he use a top rope DDT as well for a while?
I can't remember. Not in any matches that I can think of. I know he's hit a like top rope Hurricane Rana before.
I want to say it's him that you used to use that top rope DDT, where it was literally just a fallback DDT up the top rope.
Okay.
Which always looked like it looked like murder.
Okay, so not like the Orange Cassidy like jump off.
No,
DDT.
it was
Okay.
like a straight up, like he was maybe going for a superplex. But
Okay.
instead of the arm over the head, he just went straight back.
Oh jeez.
So I think it was him, but I can't recall for sure. I don't know if it's something he used later or before, but I just can't recall.
Yeah.
Also, post-match interviews, again, Nakajima selling that rib like it may really be hurt. And again, kind of you see that, I think is very much a cultural difference in wrestling, and especially in post-match. It happens in Japanese wrestling a lot, that kind of, it's not even humiliation, but it's just such disappointment.
Yeah.
I won't make eye contact. I don't have a lot to say. It's mainly like, I'll be back again. I'll try harder. You know, it's just really, really well done. It makes you want to root for those underdogs.
Yeah.
And then Jericho doesn't get hyped. He stays hyped.
Yeah.
He cuts another great promo. Again, heel Jericho, best Jericho.
Yes. For sure. So yeah, of the two questions to end this off, the blatantly obvious answer of, you know, would you continue watching the winners' matches? You know,
I would continue watching him in this tournament.
yeah. It's only one more match. Spoiler. It's just one more match, but
he was so. I really, really enjoyed him in this scenario. It makes me want to go back because I know he and Storm also wrestled in War as a tag team.
yes.
And I have some old War stuff I just haven't watched, so I'd be really interested in seeing, was he, because Smoky Mountain's so different than what you see in Japan.
Yeah.
It's kind of night and day. I mean, in Smoky Mountain, they're basically like an updated version of the Rock and Roll Express. It's a lot of come on, baby, and a lot of just quick, but they're working underneath the whole time. Here, you know, he's working in a legitimate light heavyweight division, and War's they're an interesting promotion.
Yeah.
So I would be very intrigued to see what he and Storm did there.
Yeah, and I was just looking through the list of like, okay, because there's one guy who I really didn't like in this tournament, but sadly he's not one of the War representatives. So for the four like War representatives, it was Masayoshi Mochizuki, Ultimo Dragon, Gato, and Lionheart.
So weird that I wonder if this was at the time. FMW still had to be around at this time.
Yeah, I made the joke. So the first match is Grand Naniwa versus Damien 666, and Damien 666 comes out, and he's representing FMW, technically.
So weird.
he has like the FMW logo and stuff on his back. And even though FMW would be around for a couple more years, he would never wrestle for FMW again. He actually transitioned to War.
Oh my gosh.
And it's like, what?
This makes me wonder, like, if this was right around the time they saw such, or when Hayabusa got hurt, or when they kind of saw mass exodus.
I've got to look and see that as well. Because
they were so big.
Yeah, it wasn't as big. Like I think Damien 666 is the only FMW representative. Let me double check that. Yeah, he's the only representative for FMW, and for the most part, each promotion had about two. Except War, because they were the host promotion, they had more.
Isn't it interesting how New Japan had its relationships with these other promotions and would bring in the stars from other promotions and put on great tournaments, and at the same time, All Japan was doing the same thing, but All Japan and New Japan were like,
yeah, they were keeping as far apart as possible from each other. But
Inoki and Baba still just had nothing good to say about one another. Nothing.
Yep.
But All Japan is having the World Tag League, and they're having Champions Carnival, the King's Road tournaments. New Japan is doing their incredible stuff, and you see all this cross-pollination of talent from these other federations, and yet think about the epic matches if New Japan and All Japan just could have gotten together just a little bit.
Because I mean, you have on one side you've got the four pillars, in All Japan, and then you've got even this is just for heavyweights, like you have the Three Musketeers too. Hashimoto was still around and still amazing at that point, and then you have all these tons of I admittedly I know a lot more about the New Japan juniors in this time period than the All Japan juniors. But I'm sure there were a ton of guys in All Japan that were really good as well.
There were, but I do think New Japan, that's an area where they just outshone All Japan. And I think because All Japan also had Joshi. They had their Joshi division, which was technically a separate company, and they just showcased that instead. And their Joshi division, those All Japan Joshi shows are crazy.
Yep.
There's stuff going on in those matches that people can't do today.
Yep. Exactly.
Male or female. They're just they blow your mind when you watch them. You're like, I can't believe I'm seeing I'm seeing top cage leg drops.
Yeah.
And cyclone suplexes and just crazy stuff. And I think the New Japan's answer to that is the Super J Cup.
Yep. Yeah, the J Cup and moving forward, which is why like we said, this kind of it's this weird middle tournament. Like even though it's pretty esteemed as is, but it doesn't have quite the hype as the 94 J Cup. It was like, oh, the 94 Cup, like that was so cool. And then, the J Crown itself, even though not as many people know about the tournament, they remember, that shot of Ultimo Dragon with all the belts and the ridiculousness that was. But yeah, and then last thing, so Hanzo Nakajima, he would continue wrestling for Michinoku Pro Wrestling for a while, and then become a freelancer, and I think is still occasionally doing matches now.
Wow.
But like it's very sporadic. It's like he had a match last year, and then he didn't have one before that until like 2008. And then he wouldn't have another one before that and from like 2004. So it was like these, I'll just pop up on a show if I'm around kind of things. So
I really wonder why that is, because maybe it's just because Jericho was the opponent. I would love to maybe see a couple more of his matches,
Yeah.
but he felt like somebody who could be something. I mean, he was so explosively quick, and he was definitely willing to take bumps and throw himself around. I or maybe he just got. I mean, that is such a time that's flooded with great light heavyweights
Yep.
that maybe he just didn't make the cut. I mean, there's
Yeah.
so many people to
Or
compete with.
like a promotion that Michinoku Pro inspired in America. The fact that they had so many multi-man tags that they became kind of synonymous with, when he's just one of 6 people in the match, don't feel as highlighted by him, especially
That's a
when
good
he's
point.
not as colorful as like a Grand Naniwa or a Super Delphin, those kind of
Yeah,
guys who were his contemporaries in Michinoku Pro. So
yeah. He's an interesting guy. He would be one to really kind of see if there's more out there that highlights him like this did, or if he was just a guy that kind of was a mid card guy who got fed to the wolves a little bit, or
yep.
even an upper mid card guy.
Yep. All right. So once again, what are your plugs and all that stuff?
I'll try to remember. Heel Turn Radio, uh, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. What a Maneuver. Oh, we got a T-shirt page over there. DNDDT, which is the D&D podcast that we do. And then we also have a game every other Monday on Twitch that we do through TTRP Theater, which you can also find on Facebook and that we mention all the time. So
Cool.
other than that,
Yeah, and if you missed anything, I'll have it in the link below as well. And then you can follow me at Knocked Out Films on Instagram, Twitter, all social media stuff, knockedoutentertainment.com, knockedoutfilms.com, and buy the Bad Light zine at bigcartel.com/brainbuster. That link will be in the bio. So thank you once again for joining me.
thank you for having me. I had a blast.